Hey y'all, this is going to be a weird video. I was just thinking about one of the worst moments of my career, and that sounds like it's going to be a bummer, and it might be. But I keep going back over this incident recently, and I feel like there's something that I didn't learn from that situation, so I want to talk about it on video to see if I can sort of work it out, but also because I think it would be very edifying for other people to hear. So, here's the worst moment of my career. I had moved to Oregon. My own business had failed. I started doing organizing and basically consulting work for small, all-volunteer organizations in Portland. I'd had amazing success in East County, east of 82nd Avenue in Portland, and had just been added to this team in a neighborhood in North Portland that had been steadily gentrifying over the last 15 years or so, which was there was a lot of conflict. Just in the neighborhood, a lot of people felt negatively about that gentrification. There were a lot of people who had been in that neighborhood for decades, sometimes generations, that were being pushed out to East Portland, Black people specifically, that had really made that neighborhood a neighborhood and created that community. And it was hard. It was a difficult situation. And I ended up with this org that was 99% white. They had one Black member, I think, if I recall. And I was working with them. And part of that working with them was realizing that they didn't have any of the systems. It was like the problems of the Eastside were flipped on their head with this org. On the Eastside, we had systems up to our eyeballs, we didn't have resources. And everyone knew how to work together. Everyone knew how to navigate difficulty. It was amazing. As soon as we got some resources in the door for the East Side, oh man, those organizations took off like they had rockets strapped to their asses. It was amazing. It was awesome. Just truly awesome. On the North Side, we had resources aplenty, but we had no systems. None whatsoever. And it was so difficult to work in this resource-rich, system-poor environment. And so as a part of how I implement systems in general, and have done for the last 20 years or more, I go find out who's going to use the systems. That's my number one first thing. Figure out who's going to use the systems. And then I figure out what systems will benefit that use case. So part of that is talking to people. And one of my early managers, Krista Hahn, who was recently with Starlight Children's, he always taught me, never go asking for people's labor if you're not going to give them something. It doesn't have to be big, but you have to give them something. It can be information. It can be a physical thing. It can just be your time and energy and investment into them as a person, but you have to show up. You can't show up empty-handed when you ask for people's time. And so I would print out these flyers of upcoming events. And I mean, they were necessary. It needed to get distributed, but I would show up with flyers. So I would talk to people and say, oh, here's a flyer for this upcoming thing, or here's a pamphlet, or here's a one sheet, or whatever, some information. And then I would talk to people about their business, how it worked, what's going on. And meanwhile, I'm doing that a lot, starting to get a bunch of data about what systems are needed. And I'm in the meetings with the leadership of this org. They don't want to do anything I want them to do. I think in Oregon, I have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure this is actually a law. In Oregon, you cannot be an operating nonprofit without an EEO statement. That's an equity, It's a statement basically that you're not going to discriminate. You can't be a nonprofit in Oregon and then have discriminatory practices, basically. This has been it was a long time ago, so don't quote me on that. But it was very essential. There was some kind of mandate that they had to have this EEO statement. They didn't want to make it. They didn't want to make an EEO statement. I was like, you guys, you're already in trouble for being overwhelmingly white in a historically Black neighborhood. You don't want to make an EEO statement? Like, that's a little spicy. You got to make an EEO statement. No. They didn't want to do it. And then, I was like, okay, can we focus on, get some gap accounting in here? Can we get some 2 eyes on every check situation? No, they didn't want to do that. Okay. And I was in this meeting and I was so frustrated with them. This was strategic planning meeting. where we would lay out, what we're going to do for the rest of the year. So frustrating. And I finally, I said the EO statement, no. Gap accounting, no. This, no. They don't want to do any of that. And I just said, okay, guys, I just laid out everything I can do for you. If that is not what you want from me, what is it that you want? Why am I here? Why did you petition the city for money to fund this position? Why did you go and fight out other orgs to get me this resource? And the president of the org thought for a little bit. And then she was like, well, we really like it when you hand out flyers. And right then, I swear to God, we were meeting in the basement of a coffee shop. That was the meeting place. The conference table that we were meeting at was right next to the main evacuation pipe for the only bathroom in this coffee shop. And every time someone went to the bathroom, you could smell it. And right then, someone flushed the toilet, and the whole room just filled up with the aroma of fresh shit. And I thought, what have I done? What have I fucking done? A, what have I done to deserve this? B, what have I done to myself by moving to Oregon? And C, what am I doing here right now? And I just put my head, I was at a conference table with the people that I'm supposed to be working with, and I just put my head into my hands. I was like, oh God. And part of that, I think, sort of now that I'm recounting that in a space where I can hear myself talk and I have an expectation of listeners, you, the viewer, even if you're not physically here. This is the kind of shit I have to do because of COVID, because I can't go just have coffee with someone. But anyway, I did not tell them what I was doing with the flyers. I assumed that they would know what I was doing with the flyers, that handing out flyers can be just handing out flyers. That's absolutely, totally legit. But that also because I was here and because we had a prior agreement on paper in a contract that they signed that I was here to help them with their systems and elevate their working product, I assumed that we were all on the same page about what I was there for. And when I had sort of rumblings that they were not actually on the same page, despite the paperwork that we'd filled out, despite the meetings that we'd had about that, I was so run ragged. I had so little capacity that I thought, you know what? I'll just prove to them why I need to do this. I'll prove my worth, and then we can go back and figure out why I'm here. Because you'll know. As soon as I show you what I can do for you, you'll know. And that did not happen. Because every time I showed gains or every time I blasted through goals that we had set on paper beforehand, it didn't matter to them because as far as they were concerned, they were just going through the paperwork that they needed to go through. They had not internalized any of these goals. They had not internalized this project at all. And they did not understand the spirit of the project, nor did they understand the real value of it. And instead of addressing that issue, that core miscommunication, I thought that I could do it backwards. I thought that if I achieved for them, then after I did that, they would understand why I was doing what I was doing, or why we had to do what we had to do, or why these were the important parts of this relationship. But that was not, I'm an impatient person. I'm a very impatient person. And so frequently I run into this problem where I try to prove value before we understand why it's a value, why that fucking matters. And that is, I think maybe that's what I needed to realize with this story, why I've been thinking about it over and over. So that sure helped me. I hope it helped you. As always, this video is sponsored by Letteromatic, newsletter writing service. Letteromatic.com. Letteromatic.com. Bye, everyone.